Welcome to this meeting of the Ebbsfleet Development Corporation Planning Committee. We're going to follow our normal procedure. So first of all, we are going to do introductions. My name is Neil Cameron. I'm an EDC board member and I chair this committee. And I'm going to invite committee members to introduce themselves. But just before I do so, I'd like to welcome Councillor Georgia Foster, who's the Kent County Council nominee, and this is her first meeting of this committee. So welcome, Georgia.
Thank you.
Right, should we go to Valerie?
Hello, good evening. I'm Valerie Owen. I'm an EDC board member and vice chair of the planning committee. How do you do?
And Michelle.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Michelle Amugi, and I am an independent member of the Planning Committee.
And in Ashley, should we go to you next?
Good evening, Ashley Hook, Independent Planning Committee member.
And David.
Councillor David Moduff, Borough Councillor, Portfolio Holder for Housing.
And we have apologies from Councillor Lee Croxton, who's unable to be with us. And next, officer introductions. Michael, you're here in person and we've got Mark Pullin on the screen. Are you going to take the lead or is Mark?
I'll take the lead. So yeah, Michael Jessup, Head of Development Management at EDC, Shay Eid, Senior Planning Manager, Simon Harrison, Head of Design, and then Mark Pullin, Director on the screen.
And this, before we go on to, and Tim, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Tim Sharp, Legal Advisor.
Before we go on to declarations of interest, this, unusually for us, this is the first full meeting of the committee we've had since March this year. We have had other meetings, but they've been mainly on presentations. And just before we move on to the business, I would like to record our thanks to two members of the committee who have left since March. First of all, Penny Marsh. She was an independent member. She joined the committee at its inception in 2015. She participated in very many important decisions, starting with the approval of the Ebbsfleet Green Master Plan at the committee's first meeting, where people now live, including one of our committee members in Weldon. And that decision facilitated the provision of 900 homes, a school, a pub, hotel, shop, and open space, which current residents are able to enjoy. And she was also involved in the decision to approve provisions to the Eastern Quarry Outline Planning Commission, which included the site-wide master plan, which covers the Ashmere area, which we're going to talk about later in this meeting. But I'd like to particularly record my thanks to Penny as a representative of the local community. She lives in the area. She is not only a resident, but a leader in the community and has provided valuable insight for committee members. And her support for high standards of design and promotion of livable neighbourhoods was evident throughout her membership of the committee. And she was a strong advocate for the local community, whilst also appreciating the wider objectives which the corporation is seeking to achieve. So I'd like to record our thanks to Penny for her very considerable contribution over many years. She was also always insightful, always helpful, always trying to get the right answer. And while we're dealing with thanks, I'd also like to thank Fred Marudis, whose time on the committee was shorter than Penny's, but there's no doubt that we also benefited from his insightful and focused approach. Fred's interventions were always careful, detailed and to the point, and we will miss his wise voice. So I'd like to propose that we record our formal thanks to Penny and to Fred for their service to this committee. if everybody agrees. Many of you don't know them, but so we'll record that. Next.
Thank you.
Of interest. It is reported on my standing declaration of interest that as a barrister, I time to time act from Savills, and I'm currently instructed by Savills, but not in Kent. Any other declarations of interest that anybody wishes to make? No. Urgent items. Any urgent items? No. No. Next, we turn to the record of the meeting held on the 5th of March 2025. And I'm going to propose that we approve those minutes. But before we do, has anybody got any comments on them? No? We will approve the minutes. Right. Let's come to item 5, which is the main item on the agenda, which is the proposal for reserve matters approval at Ashmere Phase 4 Western Village, 228 dwellings. And I think many of you are familiar with the procedure, but I'm just going to run through it. There will be an officer presentation by Shahid for 10 minutes or up to 10 minutes. And then we have representatives of the supporters, max 10 minutes, how you use it, up to you. I think it's your Mr. Richards from Savills. So you've got 5 minutes. There will then be committee opportunity for the committee to ask questions, committee debate, and then the committee will vote on the proposal. So enough from me. Over to you, Shay.
Thank you, Chair. Before I launch into the main presentation, I need to draw the committee's attention to the supplementary information which was published earlier today. This contained updates in respect of the live MPPF consultation, confirmed amendments to the main report in respect of errors to the affordable housing provision, and confirmed minor changes to the wording of condition 8, 10 and 22. Although it has come to my attention that the specified edited emphasis on condition 8 was not included, as such an update will be circulated shortly. It's relevant to note that these updates and amendments do not affect my office's overall recommendation to committee this evening, which is for the authority to be delegated to the Director of Planning and Place to approve the application with planning conditions, with delegated authority to make minor changes to the wording. So to the main presentation, I can confirm the proposals before you tonight are made by Countryside Clarion LLP and seeks permission for all reserve matters for 228 dwellings comprising 87 1- and 2-bed apartments and 141 2-, 3- and 4-bed dwellings, and is made pursuant to conditions 2, 25 and 28 of Eastern Quarry's outline plan permission. The application site is located within Eastern Quarry, also known as Whitecliff, which forms a strategic development site within the EDC area comprising 3 villages, including Weston Cross, previously referred to as Ashmere. The master plan for Eastern Quarry embeds principles of sustainability in creating walkable neighbourhoods and a fast-track bus corridor, which is now operational through the site, providing regular public transport connections to Ebbsfleet International Station and Bluewater and the centres of Gravesend and Dartford beyond. The site is located southwest corner of Weston Cross, within 5 to 8 minutes walk to the planned local centre within this village, and within a 10-minute walk to the Alcadon Market Centre, which contains the education campus due to be open in September of 2026, and the Alcadon Community Hub, expected to be operational in 2027. The site is bound by Fast Track to the north, Weston Cross phases 3 to the east, and a public open space to the south and west. Notably, the central neighbourhood green has been omitted from the submission, as it would be delivered separately by the Whitecliff site-wide developer Henley Camland. The proposed development follows on from Countryside's earlier, now award-winning phases to the north of the site, phase 1 and 2 pictured as built on screen, and their third phase to the east of the site, which was approved by this committee in March of this year. Also indicated on screen is the current route of fast-track buses, which turns northwards through phase 2 and 1 currently, but which will eventually continue west through the fast-track tunnels to Bluewater, due to be completed in 2027. In respect of the outline planning vision for EQ, the planning framework is extensive and complex. The principle of development is drawn down through the parameter plans and strategy documents, as well as obligations from the Section 106 agreement. These inform the site-wide master plans, area master plans and design codes, which guides the reserve matters applications as demonstrated by the flow chart on screen. Tonight, the proposals are at the reserve matters stage. In terms of access and layout, the proposals complies well with the layout and street typologies identified in the Area Master Plan and Design Code for Western Cross. The layout prioritises connectivity, legibility and pedestrian experience through a permeable grid-style street network and integrates seamlessly with previous phases to the north and west of the site. The primary vehicle access is from the secondary street on the eastern boundary, which continues the roadway established in phases 2 and 3. Tertiary streets run east to west, which provides the primary vehicular connections through the site, while Muse streets introduce shared surfaces around the neighbourhood green and southern passports and have the benefit of prioritising pedestrian cyclists. In terms of car parking, the scheme utilises a number of parking typologies to ensure visual impact on the public realm is minimised. Parking for the proposed houses is primarily provided as on-plot tandem parking. Terrace houses will largely utilise well-landscaped forecourt parking, and parking for the apartments is provided within undercroft spaces and carefully landscaped parking courts. 30 on-street visitor parking spaces are distributed across the site, which accords with the sustainable travel strategy. Moreover, due to the overprovision of 66 second tandem spaces, it is considered there is some flexibility for visitor parking to be accommodated on plot rather than within streets, where landscaping and visual amenity is prioritised by EDC design guidance. All houses and parking spaces within parking courts will have access to an active electric vehicle charging point, and cycle storage meets the sustainable travel strategy requirements for all dwellings, with an additional 18 external visitor cycle parking spaces proposed to fast track, which is welcomed. A site-specific parking management plan has also been submitted, building on the lessons from earlier phases. The plan allows flexibility for future measures if needed and provides a realistic framework to manage demand and address issues proactively. Overall, a pragmatic approach has been taken to delivering parking that is consistent with the character and design of the development and is supported by both EDC and KCC highways officers. The parking and layout is supported by a well-considered landscape scheme which enhances the street character and sensitively responds to the 3 character areas. Within cliffside, communal gardens and parking courts feature tones and textures inspired by cliffs, white and grey stratas. Planting is naturalistic with ornamental grasses and trees in a white-silver palette, and hard surfacing also uses silver and grey tones, complemented by contrasting bands for visual interest. The farmland heritage area focuses on spring blossom trees, ornamental shrubs and herbaceous species to reflect the informal orchard and farmyard character. And the waterside heritage landscape creates an informal setting inspired by its proximity to the water. Street furniture across the scheme complements these 3 character areas, and the landscaping is supported by a comprehensive landscape management plan, ensuring long-term maintenance, and planning conditions will secure detailed planting schedules, hard surfacing and boundary treatments. Overall, the strategy delivers a high quality, biodiverse environment and reinforces the site's character to create a strong sense of place. Turning to matters of scale and appearance, the applicants have developed a coherent approach to architecture and character which mirrors the preceding phase along the secondary street and establishes 3 other character areas, being the cliffside area along Fast Track and the Western Edge, farmland heritage around the neighbourhood green and waterside heritage to the south of the site. The cliffside area along Fast Track provides bold apartment buildings to frame the edge and Fast Track gateway and reflects that which has been completed on phases 2 to the north. A restrained palette of white, grey and buff brick alongside deliberately varied roof lines reinforces this geological character and creates a sharp contemporary frontage. Balconies use perforated metal panels with organic patterns that reference cliffside planting, and touches of green bricks are used in parts to suggest vegetation. The houses along the western edge comprise grey and white detached weatherboarded homes overlooking cliffs and continue the form and appearance of Western Edge established in phases 1 and 2. Farmland heritage occupies the centre of the site around the neighbourhood green. These buildings introduce a softer domestic scale with architectural drawing inspiration from Kentish farmsteads. Terraced and semi-detached homes use red brick and horizontal weatherboarding or tile hanging with clay tiled roofs and simple timbered porches to create warmth and familiarity. The details such as soldier courses, corbelled eaves and occasional patterned brickwork give the buildings texture and a sense of craftsmanship. while more formal, symmetrical frontages around the neighbourhood green help to define it as a central space. The waterside heritage character area draws on its industrial language of wharves, warehouses and traditional terrace house forms. The homes are situated in this part of the site rely on robust red brick with darker spotted accents. Wide gables and sawtooth roof forms nod to dockside architecture, and a striking detached homes with side gardens and distinctive gable features punctuate the lake edge. When taken together, buildings and streets are visually appealing. The use of different character typologies as part of the wider narrative is effective in providing visual interest throughout the scheme and will also assist wayfinding and is viewed positively by officers. The proposed development ensures delivery of 57 affordable homes, equating to 25% of the required by the Section 106. 11 houses are proposed for affordable rent, and Dartford Council has confirmed that they are satisfied with the proposals, noting it would directly address local need and help tackle current shortages for socially rented larger family homes. As one of the first schemes to be fully tested by EDC officers following publication of the EDC sustainability guidance, which stems from the latest Dartford plan and EBSLE's environmental sustainability framework, the applicant's submission is supported by a detailed energy statement, sustainability assessment spreadsheet and circular economy statement, and completed versions of the EDC sustainability appraisal, which is shown on screen. The sustainability performance of this phase is mixed but progressing. Carbon and energy measures achieve mid-level results with PV panels limited to apartments, but air source heat pumps and smart meters included. Circular economy principles are embedded, committing to a 30% reused materials, 50% responsibly sourced, and zero non-hazardous materials to landfill. And health and well-being performance is strong, with homes meeting accessibility standards, have excellent daylight and benefiting from good transport links. Water efficiently meets 104 litres per person per day, supported by rainwater butts on houses. Natural environment measures include green roofs and food growing spaces, and while urban greening and tree canopy coverage could have been improved, biodiversity features like integrated bat and bird boxes are noted. Overall, the scheme leaves scope for more renewable energy and on-site SUDs. However, it exceeds the baseline standards and will deliver meaningful carbon reductions beyond minimum regulatory standards and is therefore supported. Overall, the proposals are considered to deliver a high-quality scheme which accords well with the Area Master Plan and Design Code and is policy compliant. The scheme scores very highly on the Building for a Healthy Life assessment, achieving the maximum 12 greens. It's 100% compliant with nationally described space standards and provides a range of unit sizes to meet the needs of a variety of occupiers. Parking provision is compliant with the Sustainable Travel Strategy and supported by a robust car parking management plan. 100% of units meets Part 4.2 of the building regulations, which considerably exceeds the 25% required by the Outline Planning Commission. Therefore, in conclusion, this is a positive scheme which will deliver high-quality homes contributed to the ongoing development of Whitecliff and Ebbsfleet. It is therefore recommended for approval, subject to the conditions detailed in the committee report and as amended in the supplementary. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jay. Some really useful. Thank you. And we note the supplementary report. We note you've drawn our attention to the consultation draft National Planning Policy Framework, which came out yesterday.
Yesterday evening, yes.
So well done. Right. Well, we won't have questions now, but we'll go to supporters. We've got no objectors registered, but we've got supporters, and you've got 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Afternoon, members. I'm Matt Richards, Director at Savills, and we are the planning consultants for this phase. We're delighted the proposals for the fourth phase of Ashmere Village are in front of you this evening, following a series of pre-application meetings, including with the design review panel and a members briefing. The application was submitted in September 2025. Both Vistry and the project team worked proactively with officers at EDC and other consultees to deliver the proposals before you today, and we welcome the recommendation made by your officers to approve the application. Phase 4 will deliver 228 high-quality new homes, 25% of which are affordable and distributed across the phase in accordance with the expectations of the Outline Planning Commission. Mix of house types and sizes are proposed, ranging from 1 and 2 bed flats through to 2, 3 and 4 bed houses to meet a variety of housing needs. A detailed design of the scheme has been developed by the award-winning BPDW architects and evolved through pre-application and post-submission stages. The density, scale and building heights comply with the AMP guidelines, and the overall design of built form effectively responds to the various street typologies and character areas across the site in the nearby area. I've noted, and I know Shay noted it, that phase 1 of Ashmere, we're delighted to have seen, has recently been awarded 2 housing design awards, and it's Vistry's full intention to deliver this phase and the other phases to the same quality. Bespoke dwelling and how apartments designs are proposed, creating visual interest across this phase and responding to the site's cliffside, farmland heritage and waterside heritage character areas, whilst respecting the relationship with the adjacent phases of the development. The landscape design has been developed in parallel to reflect these character areas, with the strategy responding to the physical context as well as the emerging landscaped areas, including the lake to the south, the cliffsides to the west, the neighbourhood green in the centre, and the proposals include the planting of 94 new trees, as well as including play on the way across this phase. Green roofs will also be provided on each apartment block in line with the biodiversity expectations. The application overall aligns with the AMP and design code, and we note to officers acknowledging the extremely high quality of design, which is welcomed from our perspective. Parking's been sensitively incorporated into the overall layout and aligns with the sustainable travel strategy requirements. EV charging infrastructure will be provided to all car parking spaces. In accordance with the car parking management plan, provision of 1 cycle space per bedroom will be delivered, equating to 586 long stay cycle park spaces. With regards to sustainability, proposals follow a fabric first approach, with all plots electrically heated, hot water and heating provided to all houses by air source heat pumps and hot water heat pumps to the apartments. PV panels, as shown later, will be installed to the apartment blocks. As a result of these measures, phase 4 results in a 68% carbon reduction over building regulation requirements, exceeding that expected by the adopted Dartford local plan. As set out by your officers, the scheme demonstrates high quality design, achieving green scores across the 12 building for healthy life categories. In terms of the quality of the units, all units comply with the nationally described space standards, with 100% of the dwellings providing Part M42 accessibility standards, which exceed the Section 106 requirements in that respect. Excellent internal light levels will result, and all terraces and balconies comply with the EDC balcony design standards, with ground floor apartments also directly accessible from the street to further activate the street frontages. With regards to overheating and noise, only 2 top floors of Block A would have direct noise pathway to the B255 and at risk of overheating, although these units, along with the other apartments, have MVHR systems to ensure suitable thermal comfort and internal noise level. Taking all the above into account, future residents will enjoy extremely high standard of residential amenity. In summary, the scheme represents a well-considered high-quality development, and we hope that you go with your officer's recommendation to approve. Thank you.
Thank you. Chance for questions from committee members. Does anybody have questions? We can, at the moment, questions for the applicant team, and we can also have clarification from the officer team if we need it. Who'd like to go first? David.
Sorry, I'm fascinated in part of this, in the fact you're doing off-site manufacture for some of the buildings, which obviously will support the environmental side of things. Is this how much the building is going to be built off-site? I know this isn't particularly a planning thing, but it's just something that always interests myself.
Of course, I might not be able to answer that for myself. But Chris?
Yeah, I'm looking at the opportunity for timber frame housing.
Yeah, it's timber frame.
Timber frame structures, yes. That's in our timber factories up in Leicester. So, yeah, we can service all around the country from those factories. It's not 100% guaranteed at this time, but that's the preferred route.
Yep.
And that's what we're exploring to deliver. So, yeah, it'll be very efficient modern methods construction timber frame housing.
Excellent. My second question was really just a silly thing. Is KCC going to be adopting all these roads? We know.
Do we know
Do they
that?
plan to adopt all these roads?
I can take that one as well. If you want.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so all of the roads within the red line boundary, what you've seen there will be private.
Private or sorry, So they're not going to be adopted.
Not adopted. No, so they'll stay private and be managed by the managing agent for the scheme. What I would say is all of the main roads through Ashmere are to be adopted.
Can I ask you why they're not being adopted?
We tend to keep them under control of the management company, just for ease of management. We don't often put the residential roads within a parcel over for
I
adoption.
only ask because I'm not very happy with management companies, and of course, if something goes wrong with the road,
Yeah.
it's going to be the residents. They're going to have to pay for it through their fees. But that's just
That's fine. Again, what I'd say there is all of the main roads which carry all of the the larger drainage,
Sure.
the entire scheme, that is all being adopted by KCC. It's just the tertiary roads that come off of these fire roads that just stay private.
nice.
Other questions from members? Valerie?
I'm not sure if I'm misreading it. Maybe it's just the report that's quoting. It's in relation to the question that David has just asked. Because 621 says it be noted the strategy for highway adoption aligns with previous phases. So primary and secondary streets will be offered to KCC for adoption, and tertiary streets are not proposed to be adopted. So have I? I'm a bit confused. You're now saying that none of the roads are to be adopted. Is that correct, or have I just misread 621?
Sorry, no, you did read it exactly right. So all of the primary and secondary roads which are being delivered by the master developer Henley Camland, they will all be offered for adoption to KCC. Everything within parcel boundaries, i.e. what the applicant would deliver, that would all stay as privately maintained. How it's written is correct.
So are all the roads within the parcel boundary tertiary streets?
That's my next question. Thank you very much.
For
Yeah.
purposes of adoption, yes.
Tertiary streets, muses and things.
Which I think was shown on one of the drawings that Shay produced. Sorry, Valerie, did you have another?
No, that was exactly my follow on then. What does it mean that all the roads within this development are tertiary, as it were? And I'm guessing, or I presume that is the answer.
Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions from people? Yes. Should we go to Georgia and then go to Michelle? Georgia.
Thank you. With regards to the allocation of 13%, equating to 30 visitor spaces, comparable to the provision of phase 3, has there been any consultation to ascertain whether those 30 spaces are sufficient with the residents of phase 3?
Well, we did consultation before we submitted the application. Had very little interest, I would add. We were completely transparent on what was being provided. At that stage, I think the visitor parking ratio was even lower than it is now for you. So it's gone up since then. So we've had no concerns raised by residents.
I think as well as Sam Lee, I was the work for Ardent Consulting Engineers. I'm the transport consultant on the scheme. Part of that as well is the car parking management plan that's going to be conditioned as part of any future consent. So that's kind of a monitored document which will kind of be kind of reviewed. So any kind of issues that may arise or potentially could arise will be monitored as part of that. So it's something that we are looking towards.
Thank you. I've got another question on that, but I go to Michelle first, please.
Thank you. So just a question around the management of the communal green areas under development. I just wanted to clarify whether that will be under Henley Camland's responsibility, or if the developer, the builder, will be overseeing the landscaped communal areas under development.
So if are you referring to the neighbourhood green in the middle there?
Yeah, the
So-
park and then the other green areas around that don't belong to people.
Yeah, so the neighbourhood green in the centre of the site will be responsibility of Henley Camland to deliver and maintain. What I would say is we've got the managing agent for the scheme is a company called RMG. They're managing phases 1 and 2. But they also manage the entirety of Eastern Quarry. So they work on behalf of Henley and us. So there's direct interface between the residential areas and the wider estate areas. It's the same company that manages the whole thing.
Thank you. That's good to know, because I do feel that model has worked better in the area than when the builder manages small pockets. So yeah, thank you for that.
But just on the parking, I noticed that the standards are complied with, so that is, you're given the standards, you try to work to them. But I noticed that on the table at 6109, committee report, page 51, it excludes the 66 second tandem spaces, which may or may not be used by people living there or by people visiting. But my question is about Fast Track, because Fast Track is now serving this part of the site, which it wasn't when some of the original development took place. And what I'd quite like to know is, has there been, and it may be this is for the officers rather than for you, is take up of Fast Track? Have people been using it? Because it's going there. In the end, it will go through a tunnel to Blue Water, but it is up and running. Having seen it, are people using it?
I can come back to you on that, Chair. So yes, Fast Track was commenced through Eastern Quarry, Whitecliff in September. Essentially from that point, Route E that supports this section has seen a doubling in the patronage of use of that route. I got November statistics through a Whitecliff Fast Track working group, which noted that yes, for November we had approximately 20,000 journeys on that route, and a quarter of those journeys boarded at Whitecliff, so at the stops within the quarry. So I think that that's significant. And in terms of its patronage from before September and when it started, it's a great trajectory that's just going skyward. So like I say, double the patronage in the last 3 months, and they're expecting that to continue and obviously improve when you have the tunnels completed. Commencement's supposed to start in early January, I believe, and we're all hoping that completion will be in 2027, is what I noted. So that's what.
We're certainly all hoping that it actually happens, but at least the buses are running. Thank you for that. Ashley.
Thank you, Chair. Three questions, if I may. First one, really around sustainability, and obviously, you said a scheme exceeds building regulation requirements. In terms of PV, obviously coverage is quite limited just to apartments. I think it'd be useful to kind of understand why not more widely used. And the second question really was about the risk of overheating on particular units, and you did mention, Matt, in your response consideration of that. It'd be useful just to know a bit more of a detail about how the risk of overheating is going to be tackled in those risk units.
Okay, I will answer these. Chip in if you've got anything to add. So on the PV front, I think what we're managing to achieve here is a significant carbon reduction through the use of air source heat pumps, fabric first approach, etc. The PVs are being provided to the apartments, which more readily support them en masse, but the houses, we did explore that, and they're being designed in a way that they're going to be structurally sufficient to accommodate PV in the future should people want to install them. So that's the approach on the PV. And then the other question I think was on overheating. So an overheating assessment has been undertaken. That has to sit alongside the sunlight daylight assessment, as you can imagine, and the noise assessment as well, and balancing off those factors. And the conclusions from that is effectively that there are some apartments, but they're very limited in Block A, top 2 floors, which could suffer from unacceptable levels of overheating. But the apartments will be fitted with mechanical heat ventilation recovery systems. They'll provide cooling into the units to overcome that, so they don't have to open their windows where there's noise situation there.
Thank you.
Any other questions from members? Michelle?
Just around, I think it's 6.53, so the plans for lighting. I note that the lights gradually become dimmer as the day progresses. So in the night they are, I think it's 60%. But I just wanted to confirm whether that is in line with the safe spaces for women strategy. We spoke about it at the committee day, and whether or not that had been consulted to make sure that it would be adequate for people walking late at night.
So does the applicant want to answer that, or is that going to be a matter for the officers?
Yeah, I can pick that up. I mean, it hasn't been tested. I think it's fair to say with the Making Space for Women and Girls team or with the to date, but we do have plans in the new year to actually undertake some engagement around that very area and around Ashmin. So that's one to watch. In terms of the actual level of lighting, it's a really interesting issue actually. In some recent research that's come out from Making Space for Women and Girls has actually looked at this very issue, undertaken some experimentation within the Olympic Park over in Stratford, and literally looking at the impact of different levels of lighting and lowering that lighting, and actually interestingly found that most people didn't necessarily notice a significant reduction in the level of lighting down to even as much as 30% of the standard levels. And it therefore didn't necessarily have an obvious impact on the perceived safety and security of people within the park. So that's an interesting area of research that we're monitoring, and that's something we're looking to explore ourselves within Ebbsfleet early next year.
I would probably add as well, if that's okay, that the dimming regime is that describing the Kent County Council Highways dimming regime. So it's coming from Kent County Council on their strategy for improving, lights and nighttime environments, and that's where it's been endorsed. I can't find whether it has been tested in terms of those guidance, Michelle, but as Simon's picked up, I think that's something that is an important point to continue with.
It seems to me, because we've got a suggested condition here, condition 27, which requires the street lighting to be, and that's for the adopted and for the private. So it's not just on the KCC adopted streets, to follow the Kent County Council's dimming regime. So if we approved it subject to that condition, that would be the requirement. And it seems to me that this should be, in future, this should be considered against the safe spaces guidelines. But as you know, this is a KCC suggested approach. Valerie.
Yes, thank you. Can I ask a couple of questions on the supplementary report? The first is around the dwelling size type and the numbers. We talk about just a typographical error in the report, which has been corrected. But can I just for assurance, when the information was circulated to DBC, was it the correct way round? I mean, are we sure we've got the right response from the council on the housing numbers and types?
Yes, Valerie, I can confirm that was just an error in the writing up of the report, and correspondence is appropriately reported, the drawings and schedules for housing.
Thank you. So leading on from that, you then discuss the mix itself and the lack of larger homes, and basically say, well, Dartford thinks it's okay, so we think it's okay. But I find it slightly curious, really, because in fact there are a very large number of larger homes. There's 94 3-bedroom and 4-bedroom houses, but all in the private, private for sale element, and it just then begs the question as to why more of those could then not have been flipped into larger for both affordable rent and indeed shared ownership, because it's not as if they're not included in the design. Do you see what I mean? I couldn't quite understand the logic, given actually that one would assume that they're more likely to be larger families in perhaps in affordable rent and shared ownership units anyway. But I don't kind of understand or follow the thinking behind it really. Deathly silence. So 94, which is a large number, that's great, but almost none in affordable rent and proposed shared ownership.
I was going to say that we heard from the applicant, and this was now the time for the officers, but if the applicant has an answer, I'm happy to take it, and then I'm going to say thank you to the applicant, and we're going to move on to a general discussion.
Okay. Give the first response.
I was just going to say that the mix for affordable rent units is in accordance with the Section 106 agreement. So the Section 106 agreement does state that the mix for affordable must align with the private sale mix, and we make sure that we are exactly aligned on that. There has been an improvement in this phase. We've delivered more larger family homes than we've ever delivered on the previous phases. We have 3 4-bed houses for affordable rent and 4 3-bed houses for affordable rent, which if you compare with the previous phase, we had 4 3-beds and 2 4-beds. So we are improving the larger family homes that we're delivering in the phase, as opposed to any phase that we delivered before. And it is completely compliant with the requirements under the Section 106 agreement, and Dartford Borough Council confirmed that this meets their housing need.
To add it to the affordable rent, there's always also going to be 11 3-bed houses shared ownership as well, family sized.
We got under.
Yes, no, we've got the data. Thank you. So I'm guessing the answer is then that it meets the housing need as is understood by Dartford Borough Council's housing officer, in which case that's fine, obviously. It's interesting though, isn't it? But thank you.
Right, well, I'm going to say thank you to the applicant. I'm going to suggest we move on to a general discussion amongst committee members. So I'm going to probably ask you to just move to the chair behind, just for the sake of it. So what are people's views? We have a recommendation to approve, and we have an officer report which explains how particular standards, particularly the sustainability standards, have been addressed, and building healthy life. So what do people think? Somebody going to say something now? Ashley?
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that the applicant has responded positively to the pre-app discussions and taken into account some of the feedback planning officers have raised. That's good to see. And obviously, in terms of building for life and its requirements, I do like the 3 distinct design and character areas. It seems to have had a mix. I mean, I entirely take on board Valerie's comments about affordable housing, and obviously we'd always more, but actually I can imagine in Dartford's housing register that, for example, 3 4-bedroom houses would be like gold dust for large families on their housing list to enter the nations. It is good to see that. Numbers can always be higher, but actually to see a mix of 3 and 4-bed houses is really welcomed. So if this feels like a scheme, all the seem sensible things to be kind of working out the detail of. It feels like a good application.
David?
I would concur. I have to say I do like the look of this particular development. I mean, it mirrors a lot of the other stuff we've seen. The environmental aspects of it, I was very, very impressed with. Very good. The size, the property size and the tenure is good, because so often we see lots of small houses which aren't needed. It's large houses that are needed. The one thing that we are suffering though in Dartford is whenever we start looking at large properties, some of those are now being bought and converted into HMO. So I don't know if there's something that you've experienced here at Ebbsfleet yet, but it's certainly something I think is happening in places like Gravesend and certainly around Dartford. So it's just, I think it's excellent. I think it's there are always going to be little bits that aren't quite right, we don't like parking. You can never get enough parking. But on the whole, I think it fits the jigsaw puzzle extremely well. As I say, it'd be interesting to see how it goes.
It seems to me that it's a good design, complements the other fine designs in Ashmere, but it does depend on the detail. And I noticed that one of the conditions is submission of materials and design. And for me, it all depends. If you look at those images there, they look great, but they look great if the detail's right. And so I would hope that officers would be very stringent on ensuring that appropriate details are approved. And that, for me, would be the message that would come from the committee to the applicant as well, because I think it makes all the difference. Does anybody else have any other comments before we move to a vote on this? No, well, I'm going to, we have a recommendation.
Hi.
Sorry,
may I ask just a couple of other points, please? I mean, I would absolutely endorse what colleagues have said. I think it is a beautiful design, and again, I love the sort of the differentiation in terms of the different farmsteads and design types and so on. But in terms of the conditions, again, well, one thing is we were never advised of the amended emphasis, as you called it, for condition 8. So it'd be quite helpful, I think, to understand that. This again is only your amended supplementary paper. But I have a similar question to yours, really, Neil, which is how do we have assurance, I guess, that the conditions will in fact be upheld, and what is the process to make sure that all the time that they are followed through? Because some of them are quite challenging, aren't they? I mean, I guess if in 688 around the noise, for example, it falls within a condition. There's going to be conditions in relation to road mitigation measures, and then an updated noise impact assessment. But what happens if, for whatever reason, it's not viable or we can't comply? How do we gain assurance around this as committee members?
Would an officer like to just explain how the process is followed when we get details submitted and how we ensure that they are to an appropriate standard?
Yes, I'm happy to come back on that, Chair. So obviously there are detailed planning conditions. We've been working on our monitoring compliance post RM approval. So we have a detailed working process that officers look through, and this applicant in particular is committed to doing a PPA to kind of walk through those planning conditions and have
those planning performance agreement.
Planning performance agreement that covers the submission of those conditions and the details that relate to them. So we are proactive with the applicants of understanding issues and concerns, but also upholding the qualities. I think that you've had feedback at committee briefings around our quality compliance from Simon and the processes that we're putting in. So it's robust, and applicants should be compliant with the planning conditions, and unless there's discretion, officers can take that kind of balanced view if evidence or justifications prove that it's not meeting the test. But I have full confidence in the applicant, and they're working with the architects, BPDW, to have worked on this level of detail of these homes. And note again that the quality has been achieved on the earlier phases, and we expect that to continue. I don't know, Simon, if you have anything to add to.
I think what I would add is that these aren't generic conditions. They have been specifically tested and evolved for this particular scheme. So we went through, for example, all the elevations and identified those key details that we felt were critical to get right in order to create that character and that distinctiveness of the scheme. So they've then been brought through to the conditioning and the wording. So they are quite bespoke conditions, which hopefully gives you the assurance that we have the wording in place to make sure we deliver what is set out at this stage. And it's also worth noting that the new NPPF, as of last night, includes a specific paragraph around this issue of design quality post reserve matters approval that strengthens our ability to police and enforce this. So we're confident that our new processes will work, and we're encouraged by the changes to the NPPF, which seem to reflect the work we've been doing recently.
And Valerie's other was, what's the point? Emphasis.
Condition
8B, Valerie, as I understand it, and it's the words in 8B, after confirmation that it's subject to suitable evidence to justify an alternative approach for specified areas of the site where this may compromise other design outcomes. And I'll let officers explain it, but what I understand is that a concern has been expressed about the proportion of native trees and shrubs and the impact that that can have design, and that the aim of this condition is to ensure that we do get 25% native trees and shrubs. And if somebody says, well, that does compromise other design outcomes such as foundations or water or something, they have to prove it. So I think that's the point, if I can put it in that way, if I've understood it properly.
Yeah.
But,
thanks very much. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Right, well, we have a recommendation before us that we approve these details submitted under the Reserve Matters application. And I'm going to suggest that we accept the officer recommendation. So I will put that proposal, taking into account supplementary information. I think we've already done that, but we'll take into account supplementary information. So I'll put that proposal to the committee. So I'll first take a vote of those in favour.
Yes.
Michelle? Well, yeah.
Yes.
You are right. Good. In favour, or sorry, or did you have a issue? Sorry.
In favour.
In favour. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's everybody. So that's unanimous. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. So that completes that item, item 5. Next, we've got the planning activity reports, which, yeah, well, the applicant's team may wish to leave now. You're welcome to stay if you'd like to. It's a public meeting.
I might have to.
You can resist these temptations.
Yeah. Good setup. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. While the applicant's team are leaving, we'll go on to planning activity reports. This is for noting. Michael, do you or Mark?
Thanks, everyone.
I was just going to say, if you would, Shay, could you just take your presentation down, please? Because it'll be easier for me to see people.
Sorry.
We'll try.
Yeah.
Just leave.
Thank you. Thank you. There you all are. I can see you properly now. Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, hi. Yeah, so there's 3 activity reports that have been provided to the committee this evening. Essentially because there's been such a long period of time since we have met. We have grouped them all together as sort of one item, but I just wanted to identify particularly on the quarter 4 24-25 report, paragraph 2.5, because 2.5 essentially summarises the performance that there was across the business year for last year. and then the other two reports that the committee has for quarters 1 and 2 for this year. Also for noting, everything's on track so far this year. For hopefully a good overall, hopefully an overall performance. As we previously advised, we have been providing more information in these reports around planning appeals and planning enforcement, but happy to take any questions if the committee have any.
No, but I think all I would say is we thank officers for dealing with the applications efficiently, because major applications determined within time or within time agreed 100%, but 90% on non-major, and you come within the figures for appeals. So I think most local planning authorities would be very pleased, and I think we should be pleased with officer performance on that. So well done.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, committee. I will relay those comments to the rest of the team. So thank you.
Thank you. So anything else on plan? That's just for noting. So we note that, and we've taken all those reports together. Now, delegated items.
So again, a rather mammoth report, possibly the longest report. So thank you to Julia for pulling this together. I think there is one duplicate item, I'm afraid, but I think it then totals 134 cases. Hopefully we'll be able to answer questions. If there are some, we may need to take them away, obviously, depending upon the age of the decision. But otherwise, it is for noting unless the committee have any queries.
The only query that I had, let's find it, on, I think there were page 10, there was a request to modify planning obligation, which was withdrawn.
Yep, so I'll just try to find page 10.
Page 10 in the PDF.
Yes, that application was withdrawn.
And is it withdrawn, and is there going to be another one, or is that the end of that request?
We are expecting a revised submission to be coming through the early part of next year. Yes.
But we'll wait for that and see what it is when we get it.
Yeah, absolutely. The committee members obviously have copies of the weekly list. So as and when another application is received, it will be on the weekly list. And if you have any questions, obviously happy to take those when that arrives.
I noticed there's a few garage conversions on here. Is this something that's becoming a bit of a trend?
Michael, do you take that?
Yeah, we get a few. I mean, I think most of our new developments, we've removed usual community development rights. So often we can do that without any planning permission. But I think because of the nature of our sites in terms of visual appearance, trying to avoid sort of parking on the roads, and generally they're very sort of fairly low parking levels. We have removed PD rights, and we have generally they're acceptable. There was 2 applications that were refused in this period. One of them was for a proposed garage conversion at a property over in Ashmere, and that's refused on the grounds of loss of parking, and then the subsequent pressure that would put for parking on the street. So there are times when they do need to be refused. A lot of the ones that have come in perhaps for some of the earlier phases, maybe in Ipswich Green, where they had more provision. Some of those have got free parking spaces on the driveway. So there are cases when often they're okay, but there are times when they're not. So we do give it that kind of critical eye.
I'm pleased that you do, because this is one of the biggest problems we've got in places like Ingress Park, where people are using the garages as garages, and now the parking around that particular part of the world is not good at all. But that's fine as long as you're looking at it and saying, well, they've got a space elsewhere.
Yeah, and the design standards that we're looking at as well are around trying to ensure those garages are wide enough, not just to park a car, but also to get maybe access into a back garden for bikes or for bins, because we know that's sometimes a challenge, and sometimes people aren't using them for that reason as well. So I think some of the schemes more recently, the garages have been widened to meet slightly more general standards.
That has been the excuse for many, that the garages were too small for the cars they were buying. But yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll note that report. Thank you very much. I think that then completes the agenda. So thank you very much indeed to everybody. If I left anything off? No, that's everything. Good. Well, thank you very much, everybody. And Mark will recover soon.
Thank you, and have a lovely Christmas, everyone. Thank you for your
Yes.
support.